just by considering and thinking before we act. Sound biblical? You know, slow to, well, you guys know. Okay, so with that in mind, I want us to then look at this principle. So you can take that and add it to your life. Look at some scenarios in your life and kind of go backwards and just test that theory. And really ask yourself, when something happened, what was the B involved? Did I think something? Did I expect something? What was failed in my B that led me to the unfavorable C? All based on an event. We are in control of our lives. God made it that way. We are in control of our lives. And so, I should say it this way. We're in control of our actions. I can decide to be mad. It's a decision. It was a choice. No matter what's been done to me, I still got to make a choice if I'm going to be mad about this. I'm still making a choice, and I am still in control of how I will respond to something. I can respond angrily, very angry, with fisticuffs. I can respond the way I believe Christ would respond in that situation. But my point to you is that it's our choice to do that. It's our choice to do that. So with that in mind, let's use some practical application to this for the lesson, and then the lesson will be yours. I want you to go with me to 1 Samuel chapter 25. If you haven't read this story before, read it on your own because it will give you a good filler for the lesson. But for time's sake, I'm going to kind of paraphrase the story, and I'm going to use a little typology here and show you the contents of this story and how it reflects on our relationship with God. In 1 Samuel 25, you should find the story of 25. 1 Samuel 25. You should find the story, if you got to 25, you should find the story about David and Abigail. You guys see Abigail in there? Am I in the right? Okay, and then her husband. You guys know about her husband? Nabal? Yeah, him. Okay, smoke school, Winkle. 25. 1 Samuel.
Pay attention, man.
1 Samuel 25. 25. Just write the notes down. Oh, you're in 2 Samuel. Ah, gotcha. Oh, he'll sorry. Mirrors aren't perfect. That's true. Well, Mr. Mayor, we're waiting on you. We're waiting on you. Are you ready? Okay. So, in this story, and pretty simple story, Nabal, you know, he's acquired some things in life. He's doing pretty good for himself. His folks are out in the wilderness. David sends some of his guys to just make sure everything goes okay. What do you mean by going okay, Clyde? Well, I mean that in the wilderness some things happen because there's martial law running around. So the idea is if somebody decides to come and take your stuff, they can, and there's nothing you can do because you're in the wilderness. By the time you get back to tell somebody, the people are already gone. So there was always this ever-present danger of something happening in the wilderness. Well, David sends his men, and they're kind of on watch, doing a little patrol sort of thing. Come across Nabal and his guys, and what David's men do is they just kind of make sure nothing happens to him. Bring greetings. What a blessing David's men were to Nabal, and they expected, well, because this happened, some gratitude was in order. Because we're David. Well, if you look at I think it's verse 10. Nabal has some words where you can kind of see there was an event. There was an event that happened. David's men went out and helped. Nabal's response is probably not the response that David would have expected, nor his men. And it would be because of the B, Nabal had some understanding of the event that happened. And so he says, but Nabal answered David's servants and said, who is David? And who is the son of Jesse? There are many servants today and who are each breaking away from his master. Shall I then take my bread and my water and my meat that I have slaughtered for the shears and give it to men whose origin I do not know? Nabal did not know David, nor did he seem to care to know David. Because, see, in actuality, he didn't have to know David to know what his men did because the service had already been rendered. But he felt that this was some system that I'm not going to be a part of. I'm not going to do it. Who is David? David Schmaven, I'm not doing anything. So they go back. And they tell David, and really what this violates is the law of hospitality for this time. And so David, growing in prowess here, and you know David's history, David had a fit about what happened because he couldn't believe that someone would be so ungrateful. Someone would be so ungrateful as to bypass this common courtesy. Who's David? I don't care. I'm not giving my stuff to him. When you read verse 10, you see a lot of personal pronouns there by Nabal. My stuff. My things. And he decided not to respond favorably to what David did. So then David, hearing about this, just had a fit. And he went out with his men, and boy, he took an army out there with him to set the record straight and to set precedence over this guy who was so carelessly violating God's law. As he was sort of a great way off, Nabal should be lucky he has the wife that he had. It's a good thing to have a good wife, isn't it? Got one male, 8 men. All right, so the idea is Abigail then gathers some things real quick. She sees it coming. She knows what's going to happen, and people just don't quite understand her husband like she does. Now, the Bible doesn't tell us Nabal's history. Why would Nabal be so bitter? We don't know. We can only assume that something must have happened to him to make him bitter. He wasn't born bitter. No one's born bitter. Things happen. And Nabal seemed to be doing pretty good for himself. Maybe that made him pompous. Who knows? You know how success can make somebody get, a little beside themselves. But we don't know his history. They're pointing at me now. We don't know his history, but something happened to make him respond to this event that way. But either way, we can agree, well, that's the wrong response.
Did he really not know who David was?
We don't know that either. I don't think you could live during this time and not know, though. Exactly. It was arrogance. Straight arrogance. But that is actually a very good point. Because he really, in his words, and I mean, it's hard to really get the full meaning because this is translated, but this was I could give a care less about David. This was definitely a statement like that. Who does he think he is? I don't know him. I don't know his daddy. I don't know anybody. Who is this guy? I'm not giving my stuff. Everybody has people running around doing stuff. I'm not participating in that. That was his attitude. Warranted or not, that was definitely his attitude. Something's wrong with Nabal. Something's wrong with him. Great service done to him. He sees that doesn't do anything to it. So David comes. Wife Abigail jumps in and she brings gifts. And what she says is so profound. We're in verse 25, somewhere around there now. I'm looking for the part where she's gathering things, and then she says, the part that I want is when she says, don't punish him. Put his debt on me. What verse is that? You guys see that? Oh, 24. See, I was in the neighborhood. But the idea of don't do it to him, and she tried to rationalize his decision and why he was the way he was, and she just wanted to make it right. But she accepted responsibility for something that she did not do. Does that sound familiar? She fully jumped in, full steam ahead to fix this problem because certain death was coming to Nabal. Certain death. Nabal had his men and all of that, but he was not mighty by any stretch of the imagination. And David took over 400 men with him. It was going to be ugly. Probably fast, but it's going to be ugly. Whatever was going to happen, David didn't mess around. So, when we look at what happened here, and I want to set the conditions up for you as I close, I want you to think about the fact of how the wilderness just simply in this story represents the world. And in the midst of the world we live in, we have been blessed, much like Nabal's scenario. Nabal really thought that what he had came from him. It was his hard work. It was the things that he did. It was his right decisions. And how do we know that? Because of all those personal pronouns he used. My this, my that, my this. And so he's treating these things as if he's come in contact with them by himself. That's not true. And as children of God, we have to realize that every good and perfect gift comes where? From where? From above. Absolutely. So when we enjoy the blessings of life, there should be a little gratitude about that. Because it's not ours. It's God's. That's why if we keep that thought